My name is Phil. I'm a 30-year-old from Australia, and I'm sick of going through my life not being able to trust or believe anything I've been told because it's all been lies. Now, I've put this video together because every single person I try and talk to about the topic of space, about moon landings, about anything that's controversial or considered a conspiracy, people are just closed off about it. So I think in today's world, the only way to convince anyone is through evidence and, doing years of research and scouring the net and finding videos and listening to testimonials and expert witness testimony, videos, pictures. Like, you need to understand that each person has formed their beliefs and lives their life in society. And that's all formed from beliefs and constructs that have been taught to us through our education system, like 12 years of schooling and then university and stuff like that. And all the information that's getting told to us is by people that we have no idea who they are. We're just led and told to believe that information blindly. And it's only because we're not experts in the field that we're learning. So we need to assume that the authorities who are telling us the information are telling us the correct information, because how are we to decipher what's right and wrong? We're assuming that the authorities and the higher powers are indeed telling us the right information. And this is the journey that led me on to basically question everything that we've been told, because I've got a philosophy in life, and those that know me would know this, but I think with anything, if it walks like a duck and it talks like a duck, there's a pretty good chance to say it's a duck. Now, I want you to just question, let's just take the government for example. Has there ever been just one time in your life where they've lied and you've caught them out? Or they've manipulated something and you've caught them out? Or they've been involved in some sort of political scandal or corruption, and you've caught them out. Now, this is a government. I think if this happens in one instance, you have to question the moral culpability and the service of the entire thing. Much like what we've been told. What I'm about to show you with the moon landings being completely falsified, everything that NASA tells us and shows us is completely made up. I think once you realise through this video that the evidence is real and the evidence is there, and what we have been led to believe our whole lives is not true, and the people we are and the constructs we have developed in ourselves are based on someone going to the moon. Like, we live our life in society based on the concept that someone went to the moon. It's how we live our life. So if that is fake, then we are living with a fake construct, a fake belief system. And this is all a manipulation of control, to control the mind. So I'm not going to talk too much. I'm just going to show some videos which I've been collating and putting together, and I'm going to try to put it in a succinct order, if that makes sense. Now, I'm not a video editing professional or anything like that. I've just lined these up as best as I could. So if there's any interruptions or ads or anything like that, I apologize, but I'm just gonna get straight into it, and let's have a look firstly at the falsified moon landing. So this is, I'm not going to talk about it, I'll just put it on.
With very near and hot studio lighting, that left one hot astronaut inside. Assuming that it was the astronauts inside after all, their faces were always covered. The necessary mammoth amounts of air conditioning were probably responsible for the air current. Here the editor cuts to a still shot of the flag, just as the effect becomes noticeable. Here it is unchecked. This rare clip, attained decades ago, was never re-released with the inevitable increase in experience and scrutiny. To demonstrate 1/6 gravity, a bouncy, floaty feel to the astronauts' movements would be similarly achieved with relative simplicity. Slow motion. You are viewing the scenes as they aired more than 30 years ago. Now let's look at them with the speed doubled. It becomes discernible that they are, in fact, in Earth's gravity, and are no more leaving the ground than they would on Earth. It is clear from these rarely seen color television pictures that the crew of Apollo 11 high-resolution color video camera with them on their mission Yet the only pictures broadcast live from the moon's surface were these from a low-definition black and white camera. In fact, the networks complained because in addition to this, they were forced to shoot the images, second generation, off of a projection TV of the technology of 30 years ago, and were not even allowed to take a direct feed, which further degraded the quality and clarity of the images. Perhaps this was precisely what NASA and the federal government had in mind. After all, it was a first, regardless of where they were. Better to open up their debut mission with fuzzy pictures and numerous blackouts, rather than show too much revealing detail of a false scene that was yet unproven. And finally, the element that seals their fate. All the footage of Apollo 11 requested from NASA over a 5-year period. One gem was discovered just before the completion of this documentary. An old reel received by mistake. It contains the raw or unedited footage of the crew of Apollo 11, Michael Collins, Edwin Aldrin Jr. and Neil Armstrong, staging part of their mission for nearly an hour in living color, with exceptionally clear behind-the-scenes audio of conversations discussing the techniques used to achieve a disingenuous picture depicting the Earth at a distance, in order to falsely demonstrate their far journey from it, and their ability to survive passing through the Van Allen radiation belts. It cannot be misconstrued that this staging was done for some other reason, for the reel itself is slated and dated July 18th, 19th and 20th, 1969, the very days of the mission, when they were said to be approaching and achieving lunar orbit. Furthermore, it is apparent they are in genuine zero gravity of the actual spacecraft, necessary to convince the mass media of their authenticity, just not any further than Earth orbit, as you will see. In this never-before-seen or heard footage, not only is the radio conversation between the astronauts and Houston Control audible, there is a taking place between the crew and a third confidential party, prompting the astronauts with what to say, when to speak, and how to effectively manipulate the camera to achieve the desired misleading effect. NASA claims that the Houston transmissions were the only ones taking place with the astronauts. Listen now as Houston Control initiates a conversation with the crew, only to find them too preoccupied with the behind-the-scenes trickery to respond. Moments pass, and the oversight is picked up on by the clandestine third party, who quickly prompts them with, "Talk." Immediately, Neil Armstrong speaks.
Hello, Apollo 11. Houston, Goldstone says that the TD looks great. Over. Okay,
Again, the illusion they are attempting to create is the Earth at a distance to demonstrate their far journey from it and their ability to survive passing through the Van Allen radiation belts. Understand, too, that only about 20 seconds of this raw footage was ever broadcast to the public, and these conversations discussing their deception were believed to be private, until now. Here they discuss that these television transmissions were in fact not broadcast live as everyone believed. They were first screened and edited for playback later.
Roger, Neil. We just wanted a narrative such that we can, when we get to playback, we can sort of correlate what we're so much.
Here they discuss the fact that they have turned out the lights and have blocked out sunlight from entering the spacecraft through the other windows, as to not cause any reflected light to fall onto the spacecraft's wall in the foreground.
Okay, very good. Well, we cut out the sun coming in from the spacecraft, so it's looking through the number one window, and there isn't any reflected light.
The reason this was done is so that the truth of the matter would not be revealed. It is this. Though the federal government would have you believe that this is a view of Earth from a distance out of the spacecraft's window as it nears the moon, it is not. What they have ingeniously done is placed the camera at the back of the spacecraft and centered the lens on a circular window in the foreground, outside of which it is completely filled with the Earth in low orbit. The circumference of the window then appears to be the diameter of the Earth at a distance, with the darkened walls of the spacecraft appearing to be the blackness of space around it. That is why they wanted the interior dark and blocked out the sun from any other windows. Here you can see the extruded window, probably 2 inches thick at the bottom. This is because the Earth's shine is coming in at a downward angle. It also causes the Earth to appear to be an irregularly shaped circle, for you are seeing the outside of the window at the top, which together form 2 different sized halves of a circle. Subsequently, this take was never used. As they perfected the shot, a crescent-shaped piece of black material was inset slightly into the window to create the illusion of the Earth's terminator line dividing night and day. It is uncannily convincing. During this segment, intended to be edited and played back later for the worldwide television audience, dated July 18th, 1969, Neil Armstrong condemns himself as he states that he is 130,000 miles out, or halfway to the moon, as the NASA flight log also states on this date, when he is in reality in low Earth orbit of a few hundred miles.
Roger, Houston, Apollo 11. Going in from about 130,000 miles out.
Here, during another segment, also intended to air after review, Neil Armstrong falsely explains to the viewers how the shot is attained by putting the camera's lens to the window's glass, as it would have to be if they were the claimed distance away from the Earth.
We only have one window that has a view of the Earth, and it's filled up with the TV camera.
If the window was completely filled up with a TV camera, as he stated, then an astronaut's arm would not be able to get between the camera and the window, as it obviously does here in this outtake.
North America becomes invisible just off beyond the Terminator or inside the shadow.
You can also notice how the astronaut operating the camera reacted to the mistake by attempting to pan away from it.
Blue gas, see white bands of major cloud formation across the Earth.
This is a segment that they believed wasn't even being recorded, much less suitable for broadcast, for the lens was being zoomed out and the scene was being changed to that of an interior of the astronauts at work, and apparently the stop button popped back up on the recorder without notice. Here is the diffused work light that they used to see camera controls, but not throw light onto the spacecraft's wall. Here they remove part of the crescent insert. Finally, the iris is opened up to see the real location of the camera and the very bright and near Earth out the window. Here is the slate for the 19th of July, and the same shot of trickery on the 19th of July, and then the 20th, and the same misleading shot on the 20th. Later that evening, they were said to be walking on the moon. How can this be when they were in Earth orbit only 9 hours earlier, and the moon is some 3 days' journey away? Furthermore, if they genuinely went to the moon, why would they be faking any part of it? Why this trickery with the window? By faking being halfway to the moon, it becomes apparent that they did so because they could not even go halfway. It thus can success was the lethal radiation of the Van Allen radiation belts. Since the same equipment was used on the subsequent missions in the 40 months that followed, none of them could have gone to the moon. They only increased their proficiency at staging them. When some TV viewers of the second manned mission to the moon telephoned the networks complaining that reruns of I Love Lucy were being interrupted, it became clear that for the taxpayers, once was enough. But it wasn't enough for the government and contractors. Billions of dollars of pure profit went with each return. How coincidental that the following mission would have the element of life and death jeopardy. Apollo 13.
And there you go. So, clearly, it's just a money-making tool. Every time NASA sends a satellite to space, it costs the taxpayers $30 million. So I think that's enough reason just for them to keep on doing it. You know, after the first launch, she said people were complaining that reruns of a TV show were getting complained about. So after seeing this, people say to me, well, what's the point of knowing this? Is it going to make a difference? Like, who cares? And again, I go back to that construct before. Like, we have lived our life based on the truth that we have gone to space and we live on this globe Earth, and the sun is light years away and the moon is hundreds of thousands of kilometers away, and it's just made up garbage. And I think we just got to start opening up a conversation about this and just talking about it, and not taking everything we've learned in history based on face value. It's not just myself that has come to be aware of this. There's thousands of people, but there's just no momentum or movement of people that are waking up about it. So I hope you can see that the manipulation and the lie has gone so deep and so far back. It's not just a recent thing. I think it stems back from the government, and the next clip I'm going to show is just basically shows a senator exposing the government for what it is. So
one vision was described in the testimony of Admiral Poindexter, Lieutenant Colonel North, General Secord, and Mr. Hakim, that of a secret government directed principally by NSC staffers, accountable to not a single elected official including apparently the President himself. A shadowy government with its own Air Force, its own Navy, its own fundraising mechanism, and the ability to pursue its own ideas of the national interest, free from all checks and balances, and free from the law itself. It is an elitist vision of government that trusts no one, not the people, not the Congress, and not the cabinet. It is a vision of a government operated by persons convinced they have a monopoly on truth. Albert Hakim, a businessman who admitted he was in it for the money, could boast to us that he was more competent to manage the Iran initiative than the Secretary of State. Richard Secord could tell us he was more capable of running intelligence activities than the CIA. Oliver North could describe with enthusiasm Director Casey's plan for a private off-the-shelf organization that would conduct covert operations forbidden to the CIA with funds generated from the sale of U.S. arms. John Poindexter could say that this all sounded like a good idea, maintained that Congress had no meaningful role in foreign policy, and act secure in the belief that the President would have approved the diversion of funds. I believe these hearings will be remembered longest, not for the facts they elicited, but for the extraordinary and extraordinarily frightening views of government they exposed. Fortunately, our hearings were able to present another vision of government, one that is accountable to the people, a legitimate, not secret government. The story of
So here we can see straight out there's a shadow government. People have been talking about it forever. It goes under so many different names. You've got the Illuminati, the Cabal, the shadow government, the deep state. All these names that it conspires under, and once you start to research into it, you realize that its tentacles are spread throughout the world everywhere. Every industry, every corporation, every government, it seems to have its tentacles wrapped in there. And what I mentioned before, you got to ask yourself about the government. Like, have they ever done these things to allow us to question? Like, let's talk about 9/11. There's a Pentagon and a Tower 7 that went down. There's 4 buildings that got hit in 2 planes. Questions. Chemtrails. Questions. The water we drink. The crap that's in that. The food that we eat. The decontaminated soil. Like, the soil is wrecked. The air that we breathe is polluted. The corruption, the pedophilia throughout not only the government but Hollywood and celebrities. One thing that's going to be coming out is the massive thing with child sacrifice and the demonic rituals and worship of Satan and Satanism that's just prevalent throughout the like a lot of the government and a lot of the elite high people. And one thing that's really wanted me to do a video like this is it's become abundantly clear now that there is an evil power in this world. And what do we know about everything in this world? That there's an opposite to everything. If there's an up, there's a down. If there's a black, there's a white. If there's a good, there's a bad. Now, the people that are conducting these rituals and child sacrifices and killing people and summoning demonic spirits at, through celebrities on world stages, they know that there's an evil power and they're using this evil power to their play. Now, why would they want to hide God and the power of good so much if there wasn't a God? If there was no good power and there was no God, why would these elitists and these people high up be doing everything possible to destroy the world, to separate and divide and cause division, to divide and conquer? That's the ultimate thing. We as a society, we don't spend time as a community anymore. It's all divide and conquer. Like, everyone's segregated in their little groups, and I think unity is the only thing that's going to bring this all back together. But what I'm trying to say is there's clearly an evil power in this world, and the reason I want to put this video together is to let you know that the power of Jesus Christ and the power of God, he will unleash and break the chains of everything in this world, all the corruption. I believe that the world, is in a state of despair. When you talk about the older generation, they talk about the good old days and how far we've come from that. It really, really is a saddening thing to think, but with what I've been researching, the battle's already been won. Like, the worst has already been done. And if you look at it as like a pendulum swinging, we had the good days and it's gone to such terrible times. I believe we're on this swing back. People are starting to waken up. There's this whole thing called the truth movement. Things are being disclosed and people are coming out, and people who have been under secrecy and had their families threatened and their livelihoods threatened are coming out and talking testimony and blowing the lid off this. So the house of cards is about to fall, but before any healing can ever take place, the worst has got to happen. And it's all these truths and all this stuff that's coming out that so many people have their head in the sand or in denial about. There's two terms that I think are really fitting in the world this day, and that is the term of nescience and ignorance. And what I've come to find is that most of the world don't even know what the term nescience means. Now, I'll explain it like this: is a person who is nescient is innocent to information. So they may be living their life, but they don't know about something, so they can't make an informed decision on it. Whereas ignorance is knowing the information's there, but willingly not accepting it because of your ego or for there's a mountainous different reasons why. But to be nescient of information is fine. You don't know what you don't know. It's as simple as that. But when something like this, information is put right in front of you and shows in plain day that what we've been told is a lie and it's all deceit, manipulation. For you to now ignore this information after seeing this, you are an ignorant person and you're part of the problem. But I want to prove further, beyond a reasonable doubt, that all this space stuff is a lie, and UFOs are real. Going on the powers of the world, I think they're all demonic entities. People forever have been abducted by aliens and they've been released by the power of Jesus Christ when they say, "Be gone in the power of Jesus." And for anyone that's going to stay till the end of this video, I'm going to put some crazy stuff out there. But I'm just going to go into the next one because I don't want to talk too much. I just want to leave the videos to tell the truth, really. But here's something, NASA admitting the erasing of the moon landing tapes.
It was all recorded on these telemetry tapes. So where is this hard evidence?
I haven't seen anything that indicates the telemetry data is even in existence, and as I said, even if we had it, we don't have the machines to play it back.
What?
But your own research has shown the telemetry data is missing.
That's right.
Could this be true? Mankind's first interplanetary exploration and the original science data is missing?
11, this is Houston, radio check, over.
If it's anywhere, it should be here at NASA's Goddard Space Center in Maryland, home to the National Space Science Data Archives.
This film you're making now, what is it? Does it have a name? I mean, have you have a name for it yet, or
I'm calling it Did We Go?
Did We Go? Okay.
Doesn't have it either. The Smithsonian doesn't have it. Johnson doesn't have it.
Right. We've been unable to track it down. I mean, we don't know where this telemetry data ended up, and we don't know what path it may have taken. So, unfortunately, I'm afraid I can't really give you much of a clue as to where this data ended up and whether it still exists or not.
That's strange. But anyway, check out this. What I want people to know too is that I've done all the research on this, and I think you should all research it yourself. The information's there, and it's hidden in plain sight, and that's how these powers work. Is they can't mess with human free will. With human free will, we have the will and freedom to do what we want. But, for instance, they cannot fly a plane into 2 towers unless they tell us they're going to do it. Now, they've told us they're going to do it a dozen times, and I'll go into proofs of that in another video if people want. But the powers that be, they tell us everything, and everything is hidden in plain sight. And it's the ignorance of people to their own demise which have caused this. But thankfully there is a truth movement. People are waking up. People are becoming aware that, ask questions, find out information for yourself. Don't take, information on blind faith. Research it and check it out. But here is some great little NASA fails.
Could you do a somersault right now?
Low Earth orbit is between 99 miles and 1,200 miles away. The moon is claimed to be 200.
The motion of the vehicle, making sure that it was steady and that there were very few vibrations of any sort. Here's a picture of the INSAT actually being deployed from the spacecraft. You can see that the deploy went very smoothly. At the moment
Did you see it in the background? There was a guy in the background, man. I'm not kidding you. You can't deny that that's someone in the background. There's a guy moving in the background. Here, watch it again. Watch it closely. I looked up, or I tried to look up the size of this rocket. I found this picture. You can see it's massive. So if that rocket is in space, and if there's a guy in the background in that footage, that means that there are like giants, like insane big giants floating around in space looking at NASA. That's probably why they don't dare to go back to the moon and why they hide so much stuff. Space is full of giants.
Velocity 2,900 feet per second, altitude 9 nautical miles, downrange distance 7 nautical miles.
This is not standard. This is not something that is planned, of course. I can see a solid rocket booster has broken away from Shuttle Challenger. That's what you're looking at in the middle of your screen. I cannot see the shuttle itself.
In 1986, the Shuttle Challenger exploded about 74 seconds after takeoff, killing all 7 astronauts inside. Or did it? It turns out that 6 of the 7 are still alive and kicking today. Ellison Onizuka claims to be his identical twin brother, Claude. Yeah, I've got an identical twin brother, Claude, too. The Challenger pilot, Mickey Smith, hasn't even bothered changing his name. He's now Professor Michael J. Smith of University of Wisconsin. Now, Krista McAuliffe was a bit of a sneaky one. She was the Challenger payload specialist, quite famous for being a teacher. It turns out during her astronaut days she was using her middle name, Krista, and now she goes by her first name, Sharon, and she's a Syracuse law professor. The Challenger commander, Francis Richard Scobie, is now Dick Scobie, which sounds like a rather unpleasant disease, the CEO of Cows in Trees Limited. Judith Resnick, the Challenger mission specialist, again hasn't even bothered changing her name. She's a professor at Yale Law. And finally, Ronald McNair, another Challenger mission specialist, claims to be his identical twin brother, Carl McNair.
So again, just research the stuff yourself. Just spend more than 5 minutes and you'll just find evidence and clip after clip and documentary after documentary. It just goes on and on and on and on. The next thing I want to show you, I hope this is, you're getting some value from this and not just think it's edited, someone's like made up this footage and stuff. If you still are kind of skeptical minded, that's sweet. I guess I need you to just think that it's 12 years of indoctrination that you've been led down. It's not your fault that it's so hard to shed these beliefs and build a new belief structure, because the ego is very attached, and the world has done great at tying us to our egos. But if I know it's hard for some people, but think with an open mind. Have a growth mindset instead of a fixed mindset that you know everything and everything you've been told is fact. None of this may be true. It may be all false. And the thing is that if it is, I am fine to admit I was wrong. There's no troubles in me changing my beliefs and saying, "Whoops, sorry, the information I put out was wrong." But I think it's quite to the contrary. The information I've been told my whole life is crap, and I feel that there's some sort of synchronicity in life that's just putting this information right in front of me to be able to share it with you, because a lot of this stuff I hadn't seen until I saw it, much like you. So I'm trying to do my best to put innocence in daughter. So far I've tried to show you that the majority of space travel and what we're being told is just to make money and provide false indoctrination. I don't really know the ultimate reason behind it, but the next thing I want to show you is some new information that's come out, and a lot of this information is very confronting, I admit, and it challenges you, and it challenges your values and your belief system. But if this is resonating with you, just know that it's not the end of the world. Like I said, the battle has already been won. It's just we need to share this information now. We need to get talking about it. We need to bring the truth out to everyone. And the truth is a hard pill to swallow sometimes, but we've got to do it. So have a look at this. This is from a documentary called UFOs, the Greatest Story Ever Denied.
One of Stubbs' most compelling videos was the STS-75 footage of what was called the tether incident. What NASA was telling us they were doing was releasing a satellite at the end of this 12-mile-long tether that would serve as a test to see if this energy-producing satellite could open up a new method of propulsion for shuttles to eliminate using fuel.
If you look up the word tether in Merriam-Webster's dictionary, here's what the definition is. Tether, a rope or chain that is used to tie an animal to a post, wall, etc., so that it will stay in a particular area. The tether satellite turns out to be a power generator somewhat like a Tesla coil, producing a high voltage and being dragged through space and the plasma fields. This seems to have disrupted the balance of plasma in the upper atmosphere, and these critters or animals that exist in the space were affected.
This is a fact of the matter. We were really not sure after John flew whether or not there were critters, living critters out there somewhere.
Critters that were captured by NASA on that mission STS-75 in 1996. In all my considerable experience of the entire UFO scenario, I have never seen and never expected to see footage like that. And least of all did I expect to see it on film that, or tape that had been exposed by the government in a NASA mission. The shuttle Columbia in this mission was equipped with a very sophisticated and expensive ultraviolet camera. It was sensitive to the near ultraviolet. And when they were up at 300 miles above the atmosphere, they launched from the Columbia a small satellite with a tether. Not long after it was launched, the tether broke.
We'll record steadily the whole break and coil back of the tether.
Copy, Claude.
We go.
Again, this is a view of the satellite.
Well, if it had to break, it did it in the right place.
And you see on this astonishing film, you see the satellite go drifting far astern of this orbiting Columbia. The tether, which is 12 miles long, straightens out into a long white line, which you can see as plainly as could be.
Columbia and the satellite now 77 nautical miles apart.
Now, while this is all going on, a whole covey of UFOs, perhaps 36 of them, manifest to this ultraviolet camera, and they begin moving around, circulating, looking for all the world like something in an aquarium tank.
The satellite, again, just moving into sunrise.
Now, Houston, of course, down on the ground, is getting this feed from the Columbia, and they ask the astronauts in the shuttle, what can they see? What is it they can see?
You guys getting the image?
Franklin, we see a long line, a couple of star-like things, and a lot of things swimming in the foreground. Can you describe what you're seeing?
Well, the long line is a tether, and there's a little bit of debris that kind of flies with us.
It is like a brilliant white bar. It looks like a neon sign, and it's 12 miles long. Now, what this does is give you a sort of cosmic ruler by which you can get an idea and an estimate of the diameter of the UFOs that are flitting around down there. Now, when you see them go behind the tether, that means that you can use that tether like a ruler to measure their diameter. And those things that are down there going behind the tether are between 2 and 3 nautical miles in diameter.
Image stabilization with UFO tracking analysis reveals the flight paths of the objects swarming the tether. This process is courtesy of Kerry Martinek of Luna Cognito Productions. Applying object flight path and velocity tracking enables us to see the trajectories that these objects are traveling. There are at least 5 objects that are traveling alongside the tether. Many of these objects are traveling forward, coming to a complete stop, and then traveling back where they came from. The maneuvers that these objects are making take an enormous amount of energy. While all this is going on, the tether, the objects, and the shuttle are all orbiting Earth at velocities of at least 17,500 miles per hour. The objects are being recorded in the infrared and ultraviolet light spectrums, which means they are invisible to the naked eye.
One of the things you see over and over again is you see UFOs materialize into the ultraviolet while you watch. You see them come from out of nowhere to the point where they are returning a response to the camera. You also see them dematerialize while you have them under observation. There's 2 of the central things that have gone on with UFOs since day one: materialization and dematerialization. It's going on in this film 300 miles above the Earth, photographed by your government with your astronauts superintending the whole thing.
Early, completely unzoomed, and you see the full extent of the tether.
Columbia, Houston, that's a much better view, a lot more contrast.
This film proves our...
So, we can clearly see that there's something out there. You can see why possibly they would have told lies. You know, imagine if everyone knew that there are these critters flying above us everywhere. You know, it'd be a bit of a different world we would perceive to live in, wouldn't it? You know, that we're not just these little minute organisms, smartest things in the world, living on this spinning 1,000-mile-hour globe on a trajectory throughout space with these billions of other Earth-like planets that are now being discovered. I mean, it's getting pretty crazy.